sorry. Senator Alma Francis
Yep.
Heyliger, you're recognized for your 7 minutes.
Good day, everyone. Good day to my colleagues, to the people of the territory, to the testifiers. Commissioner White, you referenced in your testimony POD. Could you expound and share with me exactly what that is?
Yes, so in our meeting with Human Services, again, there's no blueprint for summer camps. We would like to try every attempt to keep our employees and the campers safe. One of the things that we're going to attempt to do is put children in pods. And when I say pods, and I'll use the number 50, for example, we are going to separate those children in pods of 10. So if I have 50 campers of one camp, I will have 5 pods, 10 children each. Those individuals in the pods will only be allowed to basically kind of play and be around individuals in that selected pod. The reason for that, Senator, is in the event, and let me knock on wood, in the event that there is a positive case, we know that the Department of Health can more simplify contact tracing with those number of children that are in those pods. Okay. Now, I will say this. We know that the reason that children go to summer camp is to run around and play. Mm-hmm. That is going to be an enormous task for us to keep 10 children to play with, only 10 children for the entire 8-hour period.
So I'm assuming this has to do with safety, especially dealing with COVID-19. What conversations have you had? I see here you said you guys spoke with Human Services. What conversations have you had with Human Services, as well as even the Department of Health, as it relates to protection of these young people dealing with COVID-19?
Well, the most important thing is education. Our staff need to be educated. We always have a orientation on the first day of camp, where we kind of instruct the parents of what is expected. Of course, COVID-19 is going to be a big conversation this year, the do's and don'ts. But we prepared ourselves, getting the necessary equipment. Each one of our facilities that have a camp is going to have those facial temperature scanners. Employees are going to be logging everybody that come into the facility, what time they come into the facility. So we're going to know who is there. We're going to know what pods they're supposed to be in. I've talked with the district administrators as far as doing a color coding. So if I had 5 pods with 10 people each, getting the little rubber bands to put on those children's hands, so that if I can look and I could see a child playing with somebody that have on a blue band and they have on a red band, I know that they are not supposed to be together because they're not in the same pods.
Okay, I understand that. I want to ask, you talked a little bit about maximum about 50 students, 50 children per camp. What was the normal size prior to COVID you would normally see with children coming to these camps, the amount?
Some of our camps easily was 100 children, easily.
Okay. So this has been an adjustment to assist with the safety aspect of it.
Correct.
And is this, when they come to the camp, is it based on first come, first serve? How do you decipher, determine who these children are going to be to participate?
Yeah, unfortunately, Senator, that is the system this year because we have a cap number. It is going to be first come, first serve. When we reach that cap, unfortunately, we are going to have to cut off. And again, it's a safety issue. We are mandated by Human Services and Health to keep in those guidelines with the number. So there are going to be some parents and some children that are going to be left out this year, unfortunately. I encourage parents to get down here as soon as possible and register their children before they're filled.
So 2 parts then. I know last summer you guys participated in some virtual activities. Do you think that could be a continuing option this year, because we're still in the pandemic, even though we're trying to open up and go to some part physical camps. What about some of the virtual ones for those that might not be able to make it, since the numbers are so much lower, like at 50% capacity? And also, do you have a tentative timeline for when these camps are supposed to start?
Yes. So again, they're set to start on June 14th. That is the start date for all of our camps. To add to it, is it going to be virtual? Our virtual program last year was a success. It started off really good, but later on into the weeks, we started to see the numbers dwindle a lot. Like I said, you cannot compare in-person summer camp to virtual summer camp. Because of COVID-19, the staff is going to have to pay extra care to these children this year. There's no way that they can do in-person and still concentrate on virtual camps. A lot of these camps are outdoor, where they're going to have to be, again, monitoring where the children in these different pods are going. What I am going to do.
What type of funding, if any, did your department get as it relates to COVID? And was it specifically earmarked, or could it be utilized for potentially, even if you did 1 or 2 virtual programs?
1 minute.
Yes. So we received several funds, several $100,000 from the CARES Act funding. Most of that went into equipment. Again, the funding for virtual isn't an issue, Senator. I think it's more as far as staffing and resources.
Okay.
What I do plan to do is kind of channel some of those parents and children that don't get into our program to other programs that are being held across the island.
30 seconds.
I saw cost-wise, and I think you even mentioned, I heard something about $20, and I saw an ad said $125, a variety of pricing. Could you give me a definitive cost, or are there different costs per camp depending on which one it is? And what about the disadvantaged students that, they could make it in time to register, but they might not have access to funding? Is there anything for those individuals that might be disadvantaged from that perspective?
Time.
Okay, so I'll answer your first question. All of our camps territory-wide are $125 for the entire six-week period. Okay. That breaks down to $20 a week for the camp, $5 a day. We are particularly proud of that price, Senator. I've challenged several people to prove me wrong that there's nowhere in the world you can find a 6-week summer camp for $125 for 6 weeks. You're going to pay $125 per week. So again, all the camps are that $20 a week, $5 a day. We do understand that there are individuals, families that may not be able to afford that. I do know that the Department of Human Services have grants where they give parents where they pay for the summer camps. Community Foundation, BI, also is giving out grants for summer camps. But the second child, like I said, if you have multiple children, which we see,
yes,
that first child would be $125, but the second child automatically knocks off $25, so you would only pay $100 for that second child or any other child after that.
Okay, so may I ask my last question, just a follow up to what he just said?
Yes, you may.
So basically, there are some parents that have 3 and 4 children, and they still want their children to experience, camp life, getting out there after COVID. So with all these different agencies or grants or human services that you listed, is this information also provided through your agency to let parents know that they could get this type of assistance to allow their children to go to camp? How do you cross these two things so parents would be aware?
So I'll be quite honest. I in the last 5 years, I've had a handful of parents that have said, Commissioner, I have 3-4 children. I don't think I can afford to get them in. Very rarely, Senator, very rarely I would have a parent who said they cannot afford to get their parents in.
But that's the
or
thing.
If they ask, I will then
that's
direct
the
them.
ones that are willing to talk to you, but there's some that just sees
Correct.
the number that's never going to even approach the conversation, because with 4 children, that's $500 they can't afford. So you might have heard from a handful of them. That's the one that's willing to be vocal. But those that feel they can't afford it will never say anything. So that's why I'm trying to find out if that additional information for help is readily available to them. So for those that don't want to come and have the conversation with you, they would say, well, okay, I could go to Human Services or go here to try to get the monies to make sure that my children have these experiences.
So it is not readily available, but that is a great point that probably on our application, we need to put on there, anyone that is having difficulties paying for these fees can look into those other resources and see if they can have them pay for them themselves. Thank you
so much. I appreciate it, Mr. Chairman, for the additional time.
You're welcome, Senator Francis Heyliger.
Senator Francis Heyliger, you're recognized for your 7 minutes.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon, colleagues. Good afternoon to the testifiers. Good afternoon to the people of the territory. In the testimony that was given earlier, you referenced the drug education for youth, which is DEFY. Could you expound a little bit in regards to that program? Is it currently active? Because it said you are building a department's 15-year quest in partnership. So it currently exists and it's active?
Sergeant Giddens, yes, ma'am, it's active. This is a partnership where the National Guard, Department of Justice, are in collaboration in training and preparation for prevention methods for the young people to be free from getting involved in drugs. We also talked about character building, teamwork, and preparations to work in society in a manner which they can be successful citizens.
Okay. One of the things I know during the Reagan era, there was another program called DARE, I believe. It was the Drug Abuse Resistance Education. Is this that program transformed, a hybrid of it? Or is this a totally different program that you guys could potentially tap into?
This is a different program altogether from the DARE program.
The DARE program, have you guys ever participated in that one since they're completely different?
In the past, they did have a DARE program, but we haven't had a DARE program in a long time, ma'am.
Okay. I know the police department works very closely at times when it comes to sports parks and recreation, dealing with activities. Do you guys have any data or information as it relates to how these programs work collectively? Do you see any benefit? Do you keep any statistics in regards to that?
We don't have statistical information of how we have collaborated in the past. Currently, right now, one of the things they have done, they have come out to our health center and take a look at how they could assist us in improving the playing field for the softball and on the basketball courts that we have here in St. Croix.
Do you have any data as it relates to, say, youth offenders? And if so, where can we get this information?
No, ma'am. In the past, there was no collection on for data.
Well, how do you know if these programs even work if you're not even collecting or gathering data to know what actually works with these young people? You just apply for grants or participate and really don't have any sound information to know if these things work or not.
Mrs. Watley will be able to provide additional information on that, ma'am.
Okay. Do you have any information on recidivism? Okay. I always get tongue-tied with this word. Recidivism. Do you have any kind of data in regards to when young people go out and it's a revolving door in regards to them going out and coming back? Do you keep data on that?
Data is collected, but it's not collected by us here at the crime prevention location. But we can get that information for you from the Juvenile Bureau later.
Well, through the chair, I would like to request that information, because one of the things with you guys coming before us and sharing information with us, we have to know if these things work. we have to know that if the effort and the time and the grant collecting and the monies and all these things we're putting into these young people actually work to assist with curtailing any issues or even prevention of them going down the wrong path. And if we're not collecting data, or if we don't have access to the data, it's almost like we're just doing it just for the sake of doing it without knowing what we need to pinpoint in order to make improvements to make things better. So that's a major concern for me, because if we can't collect this, it's almost for naught. So the other thing I wanted to ask you, when it comes to some of these programs, when individuals participate, okay, even if you don't collect statistics, at the end of the program, do you have information even within the program that you would know if what the children got out of it? Do you do that? Anything? I'm just trying to see if anything is done at all.
Yes, ma'am. We do collect the information as to what parts of the program they enjoyed, what parts they would like to see change, what improvement they would like to see us do. And most of these students continue with us, not just for one summer or just for a brief period of time. They usually will continue this program until, let's say, from elementary to about the point where they're just starting high school.
Well, I know in the testimony you said you guys plan to team up and do more activities with sports parks and rec. Could you tell us about the ideas or plans that you have in place in teaming up with them so we could have some type of bird's eye view to see what's coming?
We're looking forward to expanding where we do basketball, and we're also looking to do something more with kickball. That's something that will be new, that we will be bringing forward, so that we can not only incorporate sports parks and recreation, but the housing community as well, to try to have activities where, like we're saying, the youth will not be outside and without some creative thing doing in their neighborhoods. So this is one of the things that we have discussed about what activities that's not going to cost a lot of funds, that we could get the youth involved and start some interactive competition between the neighborhoods.
Okay. Well, Mr. Chairman, I definitely would like to get the information in regards to recidivism as it relates to the statistics, as well as, I will say this to the testifiers today. One thing with me, and I am sure with quite a bit of my colleagues, we cannot make decisive decisions to even assist your department in various areas that you need. And one of the reasons you guys come here is for us to collect the information and data. But if I'm in a situation where you don't even collect it or even have access or don't know what's happening, it not only puts you at a disadvantage testifying before us, but also puts me at a disadvantage as a lawmaker, so I could make better decisions on behalf of the people of the territory. So I really, really hope that this data does exist somewhere, and if you have not been doing it, I think it's very important that you do it, because data is what drives change. Thank you so much, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Senator Francis Heyliger. Senator Francis Heyliger has a point of information. You're recognized.
I wanted to share, because this is some information. When we're here talking about the youth of the Virgin Islands and really telling the public that what we're doing on their behalf, and we are not even accurate when it comes to the information we put out from the Virgin Islands Police Department, this is a major problem for me. If you go to the Virgin Islands, the Police Department's website, and you look under civilian, and you go under the youth and the VIPD section, you're still referencing a commissioner that doesn't even exist in the department anymore, James H. McCall. You're still referencing a DARE program that you guys just told me you haven't been involved in for God knows how long. And I'm trying to understand, this all ties back to the lack of accuracy, data collecting, and putting out proper information. And if we can't even keep up with something as simple as a website, I really don't have much faith in you guys really collecting data. Something is not connecting here. And I don't think people fully understand the importance of putting out correct information to the public and collecting this information. So I just wanted to share that, because I think whoever is running this department, you guys need to even go through the website, which is a location that the public utilizes, and look at all the inaccurate information that is still sitting there. Thank you so much, Mr. Chair.
You're welcome, Senator Joseph, and your point is duly noted. Senator James, you're recognized for Senator Francis Heyliger. You're recognized for 7 minutes. Please recognize the mic for Senator Alma Francis Heyliger.
Good afternoon, colleagues. Once again, good afternoon, testifier, Mr. Morales. How are you?
Good afternoon. I'm good. And you?
Good, good. I want to ask a little bit. When I was reading the testimony and getting information, you had asked for funding, and I understand the funding part, but do you have a listing of Virgin Islanders that do participate in the Olympics, as well as, you know, what are the recommendations, or how do they qualify to be a part of the Olympics?
Well, they qualify through their sport. Like I mentioned earlier, each sport is independent, and each sport has their own qualifying competitions that they must attend. And then these athletes, like I said, must attend these competitions and meet the minimum standards set by the international bodies or the international sports organizations. In this case, the international federations, they set a minimum standard. And once the athletes achieve this time, then they are able to compete in the Olympic Games.
Okay. And in competing in the Olympic Games, do you have a listing that is readily available to the public for us to see who all are representing us on our behalf?
Well, right now, like I mentioned, we have one athlete who has qualified. This young man is Adriel Sanes from St. Croix. He qualified in swimming. We also have some other athletes who are attempting to qualify. We have Eduardo Garcia in track and field, Laverne Jones Ferret in track and field. We have Teddy Weller in fencing, and we have Nicholas Diamore, who's trying to qualify in archery, and who's doing very well, and we expect him to qualify.
Your website. We just had some testifiers earlier from the VIPD, and their website is grossly outdated. Is your website up to date to give accurate information?
Well, it's more updated than those than the police athletic league. Let's put it that way.
I'm glad Well, I'm glad to hear that. Well, when it comes to the Olympic Committee, I know that a lot of times people do work on behalf of the committee. How do you all guys go about recruiting volunteers that would like to participate and help you guys out?
Well, as you know, recruiting volunteers is very difficult, but we do have several of them when we do our cleanup projects, etc. But we only have one paid staff members, and roughly the 5 executive members are basically volunteers. Outside of there, we may have a pool of about 5 people who volunteer, one way or the other.
Well, I know you guys had also talked about this multi-purpose facility. And once that's up and running, do you have a timeline for when that could be done? And if so, do you guys intend or have the goal of employing more individuals?
Yes, we do. Once that project is completed, right now we are working to get the land over by Nazareth. We need to get a deed similar to what the Soccer Federation has for the soccer complex in St. Croix, but we need a long-term deal so that the international bodies, those being Pan Am Sport and the International Olympic Committee, can provide funding. And like I said, we already have $400,000 ready to come as soon as we get this deed. Right now, Sports Park and Recreation, they are scheduled to do a land utilization plan. I think some funds were appropriated for that just recently. And once that is completed and we identify the area or the acreage, which is at least 2 acres at the Virgin Islands Olympic Committee, once we get that and we turn it over, then we will have a better idea of the completion date. But based on the contractors, once work begins, it should be done in between 10 to 12 months.
Oh, okay. So once you get the license, the leasing part completed, and how much more do you need, or do you anticipate you would need for the total amount of the project?
Total amount of the project, I estimate that the entire project will run around $4 million. With FEMA paying up to 80% of it, I would be responsible to try and get another roughly $1.5 million. But we still have to think about putting in all the amenities inside, the courts, the wooden floor, the etc. But like I said, I have been in contact with one of the senators. I don't want to start mentioning names just so to be politically correct. But I know some of she probably has approached some of her the members, and but he did request, besides the land, another $500,000 to begin the project.
1 minute.
Well, I would like to say that just listening to you, a lot of the in-depth information you are sharing with us. The other question, I do appreciate it, but I want to also ask, as it relates to identifying individuals who might participate in the Olympics. How does that aspect work? Do you guys go out and look for people? Do you scout? Do people contact your organization? Do people come and tell you, hey, there's a young man, a young woman I think might be good for a specific sport? Does the organization actively look at all the different sports in the Olympics and say, well, hey, maybe this is a category we need to strive to be participating in this upcoming Olympics? How does that process work?
Well, each federation is responsible for their sport. They will be able to identify an athlete, whether somebody is some young athlete is doing very well, who, especially in the U.S., who has ties to the Virgin Islands. We get a lot of athletes who are identified in that way. But they will approach, or they will contact their sport federation, and then the sport federation is the ones who contact us when it comes to funding for those athletes. But they do their scouting, and they have their people who are in touch with them to identify these potential athletes.
Time.
Well, thank you so much for sharing this information with me this afternoon. Thank you so much, Mr. Chair, for the time.
You're welcome, Senator Francis Heyliger.